always, we're blessed to be here tonight to learn more of God's Word and contribute to the lesson. But I have to admit right up front, I'll need you folks tonight because we're going to talk about raising children. Man. I don't have none. So the only thing I can do is teach you academically. But you can give me your experience as we go along. Is that a fair deal tonight? Amen. I think we'll partner in this thing here about disciplining and raising the children. Of course, last time we talked about being like the children, right? That the children have great qualities that God wants us to imitate in order to be citizens of His kingdom and ultimately be a part of heaven forever, right? You know, they're forgiving. I think some of you said that. You know, they're humble, right? They're willing to learn. They're like little sponges. They'll just soak up everything you teach them, right? And so these are some of the characteristics that God wants us to have in order to be successful Christians, of course, be citizens of heaven when that time comes upon the second coming of Jesus after the judgment day as well. But I just want to take a little side conversation on this topic since we're kind of in a vein of thought. So let me get to where I need to be in the lesson here tonight. And again, I'm going to need your contributions. All right, let's look at Psalm 127, verse 3. You may or may not be able to see it, but you may be able to do it in your paper Bible. Somebody read that for me, please. Now remember, when we go back to Psalms and Proverbs, it's always wisdom for our everyday living, right? Some people may think a little strangely that we're looking at some of the Old Testament scriptures, but God didn't say you can't use the Old Testament scriptures. What He said was you can't look to them for salvation, but you look to them for what? Your learning. And so if you're taking out all the Old Testament, you're basically shooting yourself in the foot. You know, you're hurting yourself because you're missing out on most of the wisdom that you're going to find, right? Again, the wisdomatic books of the Bible are Proverbs, there's Psalms, Ecclesiastes, Job, all those type of things. And so God wants us to look to those for what? Examples of faith. You know, not salvation, but examples of faith and how we're to conduct ourselves. All right, so let's got Psalm 127, verse 3. Somebody read that for me, please. I like the New American Standard Version, but you can read any version that you want out of here. What does it say?
Lo, children are an heritage of the Lord, and the fruit of the womb is His reward.
All right. What you'll find, I don't know if you're really familiar with how many of the Psalms are written, but the Psalms are actually poetry. That's one of the reasons why God says what? Sing psalms, hymns, and what? Spiritual songs. I mean, the songs were actually made for music, right? So obviously then, it's going to be written in certain ways in which you're going to see poetry. And so this is no different, this verse. Because basically God is saying the same thing two different ways. That's the poetic style of God, right? In many of the Psalms. So look what it says. Behold, and I'm out of New American Standard Version from 1995. Very contemporary, very sound Bible as well. It says, behold, children are a what? A gift. You know, the old King James Version says heritage. And back in the old English days, before our tongue actually changed to our day, I think it was 1611 or somewhere in there, the King James Version was originally written. Heritage did mean something you receive, right? And so it's the same thing. Right. So in other words, God said what? Children is a what? Gift of the Lord. And so that really kind of changes your mentality when you have a child, doesn't it? When you understand that God didn't have to give you that child at all. But He gave it to you as what? A gift unto you. Okay? And so think about it that way. When you receive a gift, you treat it right, don't you? Right. Because you what? You appreciate it. You cherish it. And of course, you treat it with respect because of the one it came from. Came from God, didn't it? Right? You know, think about it this way. You know, I have a ton of watches. And my watches are precious to me not because they're a watch, but many of the watches I have I've inherited. They're my grandfather's watches. They were my dad's watch, that kind of stuff. So they take on different significance because of who it came from. And so the same thing here when it comes to your children, right, which is more precious than gold, more precious than a watch. You know, I'm just using that as symbolism to show you that a child is what? Worth more than gold, right? That a child literally is a gift from who? God. And so God calls them a different way. You know, in the rest of that verse it says what? They call it as the what? The fruit of the womb. In other words, that which the womb produces is what? A reward. Okay? So I hope people think about that. You know, when a young man is about to have a child with a young woman, he shouldn't get heartburn over it. Right? You know what I mean? Oh, I don't want to hear this. You know, oh, this can't be. Y'all know how people act. Come on. Because why? He has the wrong attitude. God didn't have to give you the child in the first place.
Man.
And that also tells you something about abortion, don't it?
Yeah.
Huh? If that child that you're about to have is a gift from God, why are you spitting in God's face?
Right.
I said it that way on purpose. You know, it's a great disrespect unto God and unto that child too, right? To even abort that child that was really designed to be a what? A gift for you. Okay? All right, make sense to you? And so I want to start that off, you know, in showing us, since it's a gift, you what? You take care of it, right? You don't take it for granted. You don't do like some young people today and leave them in a dumpster and that kind of nonsense, right?
Right.
Because they don't understand the value of a child and how blessed they are to be able to have children in the first place, right? Okay? All right, any questions or comments on that now? So I just kind of want to start off this conversation with that. That understanding causes us to what? Cherish them and to also what? Live up to our responsibilities toward them. Okay? That makes sense to you so far. All right, but feel free to contribute now. All right. So now, I met a Christian. He's dead and gone. God rest his soul for sure. But I think I met him somewhere in the area of 2007, somewhere in there. But I remember in a Bible class that one of the things that he bragged about, he really kind of wore this statement on his chest. I've never spanked my children. You have not? He was like 78 years old at that point when he made that statement. Now, is that good parenting or bad parenting?
Bad, right?
Of course it's bad parenting. Because why? God told you to discipline them in both the Old and the New Testament. So that means what? That God has never changed on that topic. Now, I'm not saying take on a mentality that you just waiting to whoop them. You're just waiting for them to do something wrong. You know what I mean? That's not godly either. It's basically saying when that time comes, you have to discipline a child. Okay? Yes, sir. Go ahead.
You know, I guess some people have other methods, I guess. You know, he might have been doing something worse than whipping him. I don't, you don't know. Chances are, though, I mean, but most of the time people say that in other words, they just talk to them and time out. You know, I guess if that works for you, that's, you know, you can tell a child to do something for him to do it after a while, just get on them, you know, put something on them, you know. But some people believe in time outs and all that kind of stuff. You know, of course, I think, like I say, you know, you can pay the kid and give them time out and all that stuff to plead with them and do that for days at the time. You can go and spank them and whip them and be done with it.
Right.
And achieve what you're trying to achieve. Ain't no point in begging the kid all day to do something that you can get them to do in a few minutes.
Right.
That's right.
But you know, you got people nowadays who tell people that's abuse when you spank a kid. Well, that's the reason they're putting so many demons in the streets. You know,
Right.
some people ain't really doing that.
Sure.
Let them do what they want to do.
Exactly.
A lot of times, kids ain't just naturally want to do the right thing. Most of them not.
Bible tell you
You know,
that.
you got to teach them the right thing and let them know that there's a punishment for not doing the right thing. You know, you really got the best interest at heart. You see how much the society's changed since they outlawed spanking and all that stuff. You know, kids doing a lot worse things than they used to. But if they get away with it while they're home, they feel like they do the same thing when they leave home.
You better believe it. You better believe there's danger to their soul. And the Bible is basically about to say that. Everything you just said in 2 seconds here. All right, very good. All right. So now, let's look at this. And this is a perfect segue into what he just said, because what you're going to find out is physical discipline is not abuse when it's necessary.
Right.
Okay? Again, what's the key word? When it's necessary. Right? You go overboard. By far, right? And that's why God said, what? Don't provoke them to wrath. Right? Don't abuse them. Don't mistreat them. Don't neglect them. You know? And so let's look at this for a minute. Again, your wisdom again comes out of Proverbs in this case. Remember the wisdom man books, Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Job, so forth and so on. But let's look at Proverbs 13:24. Somebody read that for me, please. This is part of your wisdom. Now remember what we're doing is the Old Testament is leading up to what the New Testament is basically going to summarize all of this stuff. Let's put it that way.
He who uphold his rod and hate his son, but he love him and
Diligently. All right. So now, he with what? He who, this is New American Standard again, Bible, he who withholds his rod does what? Hates his son. But now the world tells you that if you spank him, you hate him. Remember, that's how Satan operates, right? Remember when he did at the tree? Remember when he told Eve, you shall not what? Surely die? Satan loves to do what politicians do. He loves to spin words, right? To try to give them a different meaning. Add one, take one away, all that kind of stuff. To give it slightly different meaning, which it makes it a whole lie. Okay? And so this is the point here. God is saying, actually, if you withhold the rod, you're showing that you don't love your child. Give me some reasons why. What you think? Why would God say that? Because you have the experience. Why would you hate your child if you don't spank your child? What does that mean?
Because you're letting them get away with stuff like, look at all these kids, they killing and bullying, just torturing innocent people in the world, but it's because they have no discipline. They haven't been taught that that's the wrong thing to do. They just, it's like you said, they just want to get out there and do whatever they want to do, and they're going to do it. And with the law telling us that we can't spank them, discipline them, really, I mean, but they are, look at this generation now, that because they stopped all the spanking and discipline and stuff, look at what they're turning out. Look, they just killers, and more of our kids are ending up in jail, in graves early, and they're taking a lot of innocent people with them.
And they're attacking teachers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there was a day I would be dead if I put my hand on a teacher. And literally, my parents would take the teacher's word.
And they'll watch the videos, and then they'll still say that the teacher was wrong or the bus driver was wrong, even though that child jumped up at you or whatever.
Right.
But we done already said, I was at our shop, when no kids jump on us, we go fight them back, it's our last day.
Oh,
There was an article, well not article, but it was a post that a police officer got fired because a 6-year-old jumped on a teacher.
Saw that today.
You saw that today?
Yeah.
Jumped on the teacher and everything, put her in the car and said that, you know, he shouldn't have done that. But what are the teacher calling you the resource officer? If you can't handle it, then what do you expect?
I'm gonna say something real unpopular because all over Facebook, people were outraged at the
Yes,
cop.
they were.
But you know what? I like what the cop did.
I do too.
For the simple fact, you need to scare them straight.
Mm-hmm.
You need to show them this is where you're gonna end up if you keep acting like this.
That's right.
They need to do that. They need to do that. Show them some consequences. But
I said maybe it was a lesson that little girl learned.
That's
But
how it
then when she see how the parents and everybody acting, she might not have really got that lesson.
I guarantee she
could
did.
have.
She did, and that's the problem with our parents. Because again, who's getting jumped on?
Child.
The cop,
And they won't make them make it.
the school system,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. Where they really probably did the right thing
Mm-hmm.
in this case.
Because
Well, again, the teachers in my day, it wouldn't even got to that. They'd have whooped us right there.
and then call
And our parents would have said, you know, come on, you know, my parents would have said, you deserve it, and you got one else coming.
Yes, right.
You know, that kind of thing. So he wouldn't even got to that point,
Right.
you know.
And now they're
Go ahead, let you finish. Actually, Brother Mitchell was waiting. Then disagree.
and nowadays, you know, they supposed to have protocol and all this stuff, but as a resource, they're doping them up with pills and stuff like that.
It's medicine.
Medicines talking about, you know, and I'm not saying kids are not active, super active and all. That was the same thing going on back when I was coming
Of
up.
course, yeah.
And all it took was a good walk or two,
And they still
go
act
on
like
and
it.
Go outdoors, run that energy off, come on back, and then, you know, get it over. But see, recess is not like it was when we were in school.
Right.
None of the, I call it sports activities where you had competition. Everybody had to participate. It wasn't that you sit over here on the bench and not do anything. Now,
They have a choice.
they have a, you know, choice. And choices are good, don't get me wrong, but when you are the adult and supposed to be teaching the child, your children, or who else's kids, then it needs to be pointed out that this is the correct thing to do.
Right.
And then there's no ifs, ands, and buts.
Right.
And you need the backup of your spouse, grandparents, schools, everything to back up the adult.
Yeah.
Not saying that abuse doesn't happen.
Right. But everything can't be
Classified as abuse.
And that's the bad thing, you know. It's funny you say all those things because it's absolutely true. And what the kids have gotten into is no fear of their parents, no fear of authority in any aspect of society. Because why? They're withholding the rod. The rod is what puts the fear. And I don't even want to use the word fear. I want to use respect. Respect is probably a better word for that. So they don't respect their parents, they won't respect anybody. And as our sister said back there, that's when they end up in the grave. They end up in jail. You know, because your first policeman should be your mother and your dad. Right? And if you want to respect them, you can respect anybody that's out there. But the parent got to make them respect. Okay? By following what? Biblical principles. What the Bible actually says here. One more thing I want to say, but maybe I don't need to. It might be good, I'll move on. But see, here it goes. He who withholds his rise does what? He hates his son. Because why? You're setting them up for a disaster. You're putting a mentality in them that they're invincible, that they're selfish, right? They can always have their way, right? And there's no consequence. You hate your child if you allow that to develop in them by not what? Disciplining them so that you can save their life out there. Okay? That kind of thing. Let me get him real quick. Go ahead, brother. Then Sister Green.
What I was about to want to speak on, you know, not that people actually hate them, but they don't love them like they should. That's what he's saying, you know. If you withhold, you know, the rod. In other words, the person is saying, I think the writer is saying, you know, if you really, really love your child, you're not going to withhold anything from them that's really in their best interest.
That's profit for them.
And that's, and letting them have the rod is actually in their best interest. So you're not doing the best thing for them when you just let them, like this little kid just talking about that got arrested the other day. You know, I was telling my grandkids, you know, when they saw that on TV, I said, well, she did something that she shouldn't have been doing. It shouldn't have to come to that, but, you know, she might have been out of control. And I don't think the officer did really hurt him. But, you know, if you just let it go, just brush it off, what you actually telling this kid is, well, you got a right to kick it. She teach you if you want to. If you want to kick them, that's you got that right. Certainly they're not going to do anything to it at home. But, you know, all that kind of stuff, you know, when you approve of that kind of stuff, but the world, I mean, other people don't approve of it. The teachers, the administrators of this school don't approve of that. Somewhere along the way, the teachers and the parents not on the same page anymore. But all this kind of stuff like you have now in school, you know, when I was in school, you know, the parents didn't come to the school about discipline. Now, the teachers and principals handle that, you know, but now that's illegal for them to do what they need to do. You know, and you just didn't have kids that giving you this kind of trouble. That kind of trouble and didn't talk to the teacher. You wouldn't dare disrespect the principal, you know. They didn't ask no parents if it was all right. I don't guess they did. I know they didn't ask my parents.
They had to ask mine.
They just did what they had to do to maintain respect in school. And treat them all just alike. You got, you know, and I was thinking a minute ago when you said that if you withhold the rod, you know, the person hates your child, you know. It's just like if a child got the flu and you say, well, I love them too much to let them get a shot, that hurt too big.
Yeah.
Well, that ain't, you know.
Right.
But if you want them to get well, you need to let them take the medicine.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. You do it for yourself, don't you? If something's hurting you, you take medicine, and medicine never tastes good. I don't care what you take or how you doctor it. Medicine is medicine, right? But what's the end result? You feel better. You feel better. And I think I'm one of the last generations that had corporal punishment in school. You know, coming up in the 80s, that kind of thing. And after that, after me, I was in the end. My hair. Yeah, go ahead.
Actually, no, we had it. I actually got found by my principal in elementary school, but all I was gonna say is a really big thing that's going on, especially in Head Start, is the kids have been neglected by their parents. It's I'm gonna drop my kid off because I want a break from my child. It's not even for them to go and experience the concept of learning anymore. Most times when parents come up there, it's to drop their kids off and sign paperwork. It's not even to make sure, okay, my kids get the best, get the best interest possible. It's not them making sure, okay, I can treat my child well. And when it is to that point, they're busy cussing out the teachers. They're not making sure to talk to their children. They're not investing in their children as they should. And that's not just Head Start. Right. It's
The
not
teachers
just
can't even tell the kids no if their kids don't.
Yeah, they can't. They're not supposed to tell them no, and we're not allowed to strike the child. But yet now they just make sure that if a child strikes the teacher, now we're able to call the parents up there to come and get their children. And the reason why I say all that is, as you guys know, I love my kids. I'm very strict with my children, and because of that, I'm considered as a stern parent because I'm more invested in my children
Right.
than the people at Head Start. And so when I see these parents coming in and, they're looking however they're looking in the morning, and then they're just drop their kids off, I don't see a kiss, a hug, nothing. It's just a sign you in, I love you, and then they're out the door. And like you guys were saying, they're not supposed to get a ride. And I see these kids, and they're just kind of doing whatever. I've seen children literally in the floor, kicking and screaming, and everything under the sun, because their parents left. I saw one lady, she literally took her kid to the bathroom, whooped her child because her child was crying for her. Because she had just gotten off work and she was too tired to stay a few minutes with her child at school. It's sad.
It is.
Neglect really does play a part, and these children also acting the way they're acting because I've dealt with children like that, just being a Head Start. Sad, gotta get the kids' attention. They need that attention. They need that love, because that's also gonna help them to realize, okay, what type of person do I want to be? Because they're looking for acceptance.
Well, you have to balance it.
Right.
We haven't even got to that part yet, but you have to really balance it. So, just this part, discipline is a sign of love. Because what are you doing? You're trying to keep them from making mistakes in the future. If they're hitting you at home, they're going to do it to their teachers and anybody that's around, right? Yes, ma'am.
I was saying, how we're always affected by the media, and you hear a lot of nowadays celebrities saying that they they don't give their children a bunch of rules and regulations, that they just let them have free will and think for themselves. And even though I don't have children, I'm always thinking like, well, y'all are the parents, so you're supposed to parent.
It's your responsibility.
The kids are just there. What are you there for? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. But you kind of hear that a lot nowadays, especially like said in the celebrity world.
And they forget what their parents did for them.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them in their position because they had parents that pushed them and disciplined them and taught them to work hard, not give up, all that kind of thing, and they're forgetting their own upbringing. Let me move real quickly here. All right. Now, look at Proverbs 19:18. Somebody read that for me, please. This is common sense. Used to be, at least. but it was based on biblical principles. Somebody read that for me, please. More wisdom out of Proverbs 19, verse 18.
Discipline your son while there is hope, and do not desire his death.
All right. It's basically a summary of what you said. All right. Look what it says. There's an expiration time, right?
Mm-hmm.
That you have to get this discipline in, because it's going to be a point where they're going to form their own mind. There's nothing you can do about it at that point. That's why the Bible is saying what? Discipline your son while there's what? While there is hope. So in other words, while they're still young. While you can still mold them before they get stuck in their ways. And you can't change them later on. The Bible is telling you that's how people are. That's human nature. You got to nip things in the bud early, right? It's like I use the example all the time of cancer. You catch it early, you got a chance of beating it.
Man.
But if you let it get stage 4 and on, you got a problem, right?
Yeah.
And that's what usually happens when people have kids that's always in and out of juvenile detention and all that. They didn't discipline them while it was still what? Hope to discipline them. So they're in and out, in and out, in and out, that kind of thing. Yes, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, you have these parents that want to run to the schools and stuff and take up for their kids when they're wrong. I had an issue with, it was a brother and sister riding my bus. And if the mama brought him to the bus stop, the boy got on the bus, went on, sat down, no problem. But if her boyfriend brought him to the bus stop, he would go down the street from the bus and he would walk up in the middle of the street so that I couldn't drive off and leave him. He would get right in front of the bus and he would just walk like a turtle. Then he would get on the bus and he wanted to sit in the back of the bus and he would just walk back there real slow. And one day, it was before Sister Byers passed away, she said, I'm gonna meet you at your bus at that particular stop. And she walked, and she got on, she saw that boy, she got on the radio and she was like, as soon as he get to the side where he got to get on the bus, close your door and leave him. She was just telling me, leave him, leave him. So I let him on, and I shouldn't have, but then he wouldn't sit down. I said, well, this is y'all's breakfast time. So if you don't get to eat breakfast, everybody on the bus, but see, they're not gonna get mad at him. They're gonna be mad at me.
Right.
So I went to gas and he did like that, like he fell. And then he sat down. And then the next morning, the boyfriend brought him and he did it again. And Sister Byers fell, she said, I closed my door and I left him. Well, by the time I got to my stop up by, I was close to gas estate, but anyway, the mama was out there and she was blocking all the traffic and she's screaming and cussing at me about why did you leave my son, blah, 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 blah. And I told her, you know, we can't let them on our bus. If they step on our bus now, it's fines, it's jail time, it's everything since they killed that bus driver in Elmore County.
Right.
But she finally got out the way and she went to the school. Well, by then, I done radioed, I done told Miss Byerson about it. They had the our mechanic, he pulled the tape. They told her to come to the office. She watched this tape. She watched her son cut up. They went back and showed her from the very first day I started complaining about him. He's throwing spitballs on the bus. He hanging out the way. He doing all kinds of stuff. She saw that. Do you know what she did? She got up and cussed all of us out in that room and walked out.
Makes no sense.
Defended her child.
Right.
And then was mad because they told her that he couldn't get back on the bus for the rest of that school term.
Just had to be mad. Just had to be mad. All right. Here's the other point to be made. It said, do not what? Desire his death. That's not literal. What that is saying is if you don't discipline him, you're leading him unto his own death. His own demise, all that kind of thing, right? You know, because, you know, I like to put it this way. If you don't spank your child, somebody in the street will. Right? I mean, you may end up in the hospital or may end up dead.
That's right.
Right? Because somebody's going to discipline him. And who you want doing it? Yourself. Because you know what to apply to him, right? Other folks are beating to death. Okay? Yes, sir.
It amounts to the parents getting ready to fight, but somebody else getting ready to kill him.
Right.
That's what it amounts to.
Yes. Exactly.
You everybody that got children, they shouldn't have children. I mean, there's some people that shouldn't, a lot of people, they didn't mean to have children, they just enjoy the process.
Right.
And then they say, well, I'm stuck with a child.
Yeah.
But that ain't the way, that ain't the way it's meant to be. Even if it's somebody else's child, you should always have children.
There it is, yeah.
Just from experience in working at Mountain View and adolescents and child and everything, if a 2-year-old, if a parent takes a 2-year-old and says that they cannot control a 2-year-old because they had a bread and butter knife and said that they were gonna cut it, and you bring them to Mountain View, and you stay gone 6 weeks. There's no phone call, no nothing, no nothing. Why can't you take a butter knife from a 2-year-old?
Right.
If you are a parent. If you are that parent,
It means you didn't want to.
exactly. You wanted it, yeah. And
Someone want to be bad.
and then on top of that, when you see them that young coming in the child unit, you can almost guarantee they'll be back as adolescent, they'll be back as teenager, they'll be back as an adult. It's once that process started of them going in behavioral centers, it continues because no one is trying to stop the interference.
I know exactly what you're saying. Literally. I've seen it in my own family, so I know what you're saying. All right. So let's see. Actually, I put that asterisk by that as well, because when you look at a footnote in the New American Standard Bible, where it says, and do not desire his death, it says not to cause him to die. That's basically what it means. All right, let's move on. All right, I think Brother Richard started getting into this. Proverbs 22, verse 15. Somebody read that. It's more wisdom in raising a child. Somebody read that before, please. Proverbs 22:15.
Foolishness is a bone in the heart of a child, but the rod of correction shall drive it far from him.
All right, so again, the New American Standard says what? Foolishness is bound up in what? The heart of a child. A child is not born with common sense. You have to teach him that, right? Because otherwise, he's going to do all kind of outlandish, crazy things. I mean, as kids, we was jumping on roofs.
That's right.
You know, just to climb and just try it. You know what I mean? We would do stuff like that. And then we'd take our bikes and just try to, go down steep hills and all that kind of stuff. Right at the river, just turn it to left side. To try to scare each other and all that kind of stuff. Now, that's foolish, isn't it? But kids will do those things, and God said, what? You gotta dry that stuff out of them. You just can't let them do what they want to do, because within them is no degree of common sense. That stuff has to be taught, and part of that is what? You have to physically teach them that too. Not just mentally, but physically teach them common sense, right? They'll do all kinds of things to kill themselves, all right? So he said, that's automatically in the child. Foolishness is in them, okay? Things are not wise. You can't expect them to be wise. You got to be the wise one for them, right? That's part of what? The discipline that you put in a child, right? And God said, how you deal with that? It didn't say call a psychologist. It didn't say get the medicine. It didn't say dope them up on ADHD, drugs. What did it say do? The right discipline. God said that's the way you remove it. Not just from you, but what? Far from him, right? I mean, when you have that true fear, or if you want to call it respect for your parents. I remember my freshman year of college, and most of the time, freshman year of college, I'm already 18 years old, so I'm already thinking I'm a man. You know how that goes, right? Away from home, all that kind of stuff. I'm 18, what you gonna tell me? But my dad was the type of guy that did not hold his tongue at all. And so my first semester of school, and I can't say it the way he said, because my dad wasn't converted. Let me put it that way. All right? But anyway, he said, if you mess up, you coming home. So you know what I got the next semester? The first 4.0 grade average I ever had in my entire career from elementary school to college, I had all A's for the first time. Because my dad was the type of guy that's going to waste his money on nothing now. You ain't going up there to flunk out. You're not going up there to party, all that kind of nonsense. And see, my dad did it this way. My dad was actually probably more radical than a lot of you guys would probably think. I had a full ride. You know, I'm from Michigan, but I had a full ride to go to Grambling, Louisiana, all the way other part of the country. My dad said, you ain't going there. Because I want you to go somewhere. If something happens to you, need me, I want to be able to jump in my car and get there immediately. That kind of thing. My dad was an airplane guy. So I just happened to get some scholarship, you know, out of Western Michigan University, but my dad was that type of guy. You know, you might think you're grown, but you're not grown to me. That kind of thing. And so that healthy respect of him is what pushed me and motivated me to do good in school. Instead of going up there and trying to flunk out, you know, and party and all that kind of stuff, nonsense. But what did he have to do? He had to work with this. He had to what? Drive foolishness out of my heart. You know, that kind of thing. Yes, ma'am.
Prime example about what you're talking about, and I could use my own experience. Lance and KK were twins at Adams. I got a phone call. I was at work in Mountain View, and it was his first grade teacher, Miss Morris. I'll never forget it. He takes it upon himself and throws crayons. Why, I don't know, but the phone call said, Miss Kyle Lance is throwing crayons at the teacher. And I said, Lance is doing what? And I told my supervisor, I said, I have to take my lunch break now. I might be eating 15 minutes, coming back late, but I have to go do something. I walked, and when I finished the story, it's her story that she told all of the kids that came into her classroom. She used me and Lance as an example. But I walked in the classroom, they knew who I was because my face was in there. Went to the room, all I had to do was stand at the door. I told Lance, we proceeded to the bathroom. That's when you could do what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Went to the bathroom, done my business, told him if he ever looked at a crayon without her permission, he would have some fingers missing. So he goes in, and Miss Morris, she, when they were in like the 5th grade, she would send for Lance, and she would tell the story. This is the young man that mother came. She she told that story till she retired, basically, to every kid that came in her class. And Ozark Nims, he's a counselor now at Mountain View. He remembers that story, word for word. He said the first time I ever met Miss Fester, she come through the door in a uniform. She did this right here to her son, took him in the bathroom, and all we heard was quack, 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 quack. Come back out. Said I didn't want her to even tell, because parents back then raised other kids.
Right.
You know, it was that's right, it was the village. So if Ozark got out of hand, and I knew it, I was going to tell Gwen, I was going to tell his mama. So he knew he had double trouble. But the parents nowadays, number one, parents are too young.
Yes.
They're having children too young. Number two, they're trying to be friends and everything with their kids, and you can't do that.
Right.
Somebody has to be the parent. It's all right for you to have a relationship with your children where they can come and talk to you, or you can joke with them, but they still know how far to carry that joke.
It's interesting you say that, because I still remember my elementary school years. I still remember my 2 toughest teachers, Miss Traylor and Miss Lyons, at MLK Junior Elementary. And I remember one of the young men tried to act up, and his dad came up there and whooped him in front of us. He did. I mean, you know, kids are cruel. We were just cracking up, laughing. It was the funniest thing we ever saw. And I tell you one thing, that child never acted up again the whole time I knew him.
That's right.
In school. Down the line. You know, even with Miss Lyons, she made an example out of us in 4th grade. I was the one that wasn't cutting up this time. but everybody wanted to do the monkey dance.
What's the monkey?
And I don't know what the monkey dance was. It was 4th grade, and it was about 4 or 5 boys kept doing the monkey dance. They wouldn't pay no attention to the teacher. And so she put them all in line and told them to dance. But that wood was on their behind. Every time they made a move, so we cracked up. Every time it was dancing, so she let them dance. But Big Bertha was hitting them while they was dancing. You know what I mean? It was the funniest thing we ever seen. And then no parents came to complain.
Right.
We had no DHR.
Right.
None of that kind of stuff. And we always respected it. In fact, she was our favorite teacher. Everybody was scared to always have her class and that kind of stuff. At the end of the day, we was like, man, we love this one. Because even after we graduated her class, you know, we're 2 and 3 years beyond her class. She's coming to our plays, and she really cared about us.
Mm-hmm.
And she demonstrated that, but she would put some wood on us.
Yeah.
If we had to. She'd take it off the wall, and we had to deal with it, you know. But anyway, let me move, just because I'm running out of time here. We're almost done as well. But let's look at Proverbs 29:15. The rod and reproof give wisdom. Now, here's the other side of it. But a child who gets his own way brings what? Shame to his mother. That's the kid that's falling out in Walmart, kicking and screaming.
Yeah.
The parent should be embarrassed, right? Now, it said the rod, but it also said reproof. In other words, you still got to teach it. You can still, even though you're disciplining the behind, you still got to discipline the mind. What was the proper thing you should have done in this type of situation, right? Should you have thought before you did this? Did you think about the consequences before you did it? These are the type of things God is trying to show us. You have to still deal with the mind. You still got to show reasoning. You know, that's one thing I like about Leave It to Beaver. You know, everybody criticizes Ward Cleaver because he always gave a lecture and never gave no wood behind it. We got to do both. Ward did good with the reasoning. You know, Beav, you shouldn't be doing this. Beav, this, and the other. You know, the consequences, Beav, right? But at the same time, you said, Beav, I still got to do this. You know, the other part. You know, both the mental and the what? Physical side of things. God is saying you got to do both of those. Get them to understand what they did wrong so they don't duplicate it in the future, right? But again, it says what? But a child who gets his own way does what? He brings shame to the mother, right? So again, reproof means reason with them. That's correct. But at the same time, you got to physically discipline them. So get them to think through issues at their level and not just react. Okay? All right, let me keep going here. Now, we just talked about this now. This is all summed up in the New Testament. Notice we got all the wisdom of Proverbs actually summed up in Ephesians chapter 6, verse number 4. And it says, and ye fathers do what? Provoke not your children to wrath. And you do that through neglect. And you do that through true abuse. God is saying what? Don't be that type of person to your children. Okay? Don't make their lives a nightmare. Okay? You may be stressed out about something, but don't take it out on them. They don't have anything to do with it, right? But God tells them what? And again, this is the fathers. Now remember, the fathers are absent in the home. Right? So it's hard to fulfill this. But the responsibility is first on the father to do these things, right? And that's why you married the right guy too, right? If he don't have no discipline in his life, how is he going to discipline your household? Right. How is he going to lead your household, right? So you got to look past the superficial, tall, dark, handsome, money, whatever the case may be. What about his spirit? What about his heart? What kind of leader is he going to be in the home? Those are the first things that you want to deal with, right? Because if he has disciplined himself with what? His relationship with God, then he's a good leader in the home, right? All right, so now, this is where people go off the rails. They don't understand what God is really saying. He uses 2 words here. He says nurture and what? Admonition. Now, I'm about 20 years removed from my Greek study, so I may slaughter the pronunciation of the Greek words. Now, it was getting by me. Now I'm starting to forget some of it. But nurture comes from paideia, I believe. And it means the what? The whole training of children through both what? What we just read properly. Reasoning and physical punishment. So again, what did I tell you? The Old Testament is what? Summed up in Ephesians 6:4. And so the father's responsibility doesn't mean the mother doesn't do it too. But the father is to take what? Leadership in both what? The mental and the physical training of a child in order to produce sound Christian morals in that child. Okay? The other word, admonition, is nouthesia, means you got to teach them the commandments of God. Okay? That's the responsibility God puts on the shoulders of every man in the household. You don't have one, you got to do it yourself, sisters. But again, it still has to be what? Done. So in other words, raising a child is what? Both what? Rod and reason. At the same time is what God is trying to tell them. So that what? You're putting common sense in. And that they don't go out there and do foolish things and even die in the process, right? Okay? These are the things that we're talking about. So again, bringing your children to Jesus is kind of going all the way back to the beginning of this lesson from the other week, right?
Right.
And so what you're doing, you have to actively bring your children to worship. You got to be an example to them, right? How can you teach them the commandments of the Lord when God, they don't see the Lord in you? Right? You have to be what? An example in your behavior, your faith, your commitment to the Lord, your attendance, all these type of things are the role model that you're setting for your children, right? Okay? And again, one of the ways you can do that is take advantage also of youth Bible classes. Let somebody help you. We're here to help you with those type of things, right? And then teach them yourself in your house, right? How can you teach them the commandments of God? They don't ever see you crack a Bible in your own home. You're never too busy to crack a Bible. You know, we try to say that, but we're not. Because we'll sure find a way to have time for anything else we want, right?
Right.
We'll find a way around. So why can't you catch my show now? You'll take it. You'll record it and see it at what? Another time. What I'm saying is a silly way of saying, whatever you want to get done, you'll get it done. You'll find a way to do it. We smart like that, right? We made in the image of God. We can figure out these type of things, right? And of course, be that generational example. You know, this is the famous scripture you hear in the church all the time, 2 Timothy 1 verse 5, where it says, and this is Paul writing to Timothy, right? The preacher. He said, when I call to remembrance the unfeigned faith, that means a genuine faith, that is in thee. But why do you have this faith? Which dwelt what? First in thy grandmother, 2 generations above him, right? And thy what? Mother Eunice, a generation above him, right? And I persuaded that in thee what? Also, right? And so we can break generational change, but you got to be the strong link in order to do it, right? You got to be the strong link to do it. So that's by not just your academic knowledge, but that's by what? The way you present yourself in your own family, right? That you could be making a change, you could be making an example that actually sets your whole family, even after you've gone, on good ground. Okay? But again, who does that start with? It starts with us. It starts with us. But guys, ladies, we got to end. We'll continue on another time, but we'll actually, if you want to do it, keep starting Luke 18. I'm going to start with the rich young ruler on the next occasion there. But let's get a song here just because I know I'm over time, guys. And then we'll just reconvene as we typically do. Thank you, and good class.
Dry up, dark on every hand.